Firesweep weapons were post-launch additions to the game, and while they've had a rather staggered release, they've made for some of the best offensive tools in the game. When you combine strong offensive weapons with a class that can strike from anywhere in any direction, then you have yourself a recipe for success. In this video, we'll be taking a look at why the Flyer class has taken such a liking to the Firesweep weapons, and we're going to talk about the best users for the job, as well as what options you have when building one. Let's start with the basics. The Firesweep weapons have a simple effect. They prevent all counterattacks from the enemy, but they also prevent your unit from counterattacking as well. So whenever a Firesweep weapon is involved in a battle, only one unit is going to be attacking. We currently only have 3 Firesweep weapons in the game. The Firesweep Bow from Faye as a 5-star exclusive archer, the Firesweep Lance from Roderick who has been demoted into the 3 or 4-star pool, and last the Firesweep Sword from the lovely Soleil who is a 4 to 5-star summon. This video is mainly about the melee Firesweep weapons, however we do have a flying archer now, so feel free to give the Firesweep Bow a try out as well. There are many benefits to using a Firesweep weapon. Because they prevent the enemy from counterattacking, Firesweep weapons negate a lot of powerful enemy phase skills. Vantage is notorious for being annoying, and since the enemy can't attack, they can't activate Vantage anyway. You don't have to worry about the guaranteed follow-up attacks from quick or post, so you get a free shot and we don't have to worry about taking heavy damage. Firesweep weapons also don't have to take Desperation as their B skill. Desperation is so good at allowing fast units to use their follow-up attack before the enemy's turn. It's a great offensive skill to keep your low health player phase units alive while remaining on the offensive, and since Firesweep weapons don't have to worry about taking hits, Desperation is effectively useless. This creates the opportunity to run something else. Basically, Firesweep weapons are great offensive tools because they prevent the enemy phase units from doing their job. In Arena, it's pretty common to bait in the enemy units since the AI is pretty dumb. If the enemy has a Firesweep weapon, however, things can get a bit dicey. If you don't have a plan to take out Firesweep users on your player phase, you risk the potential of just letting them chip away at your team for free. They may also be backed up by dancers who have Wings of Mercy, or the AI might abuse reposition or drawback assist skills on them. So what makes flying units such good users of Firesweep weapons? The most important aspect is the high mobility of flying units combined with their ability to freely chain together movement assist skills. Since flyers can position over mountains, trees, water, or chasms on the map without penalty, they can move other flying units all over the place with assist skills. With the 2 B skills, drag back and hit and run, a Firesweep flyer can make an attack, move back 1 space, and then their team can reposition them back out of enemy range. Bonus points if you can hide over impassable terrain so the enemy literally can't touch your flyers. Guidance is another awesome skill that can give a team a chance to move in and secure the kill on an enemy that your Firesweep user may have softened up. I have a great example to show off what I'm talking about. In this clip, my Nephany is going to get attacked by the enemy Tana using a Firesweep Lance. Nephany survives thanks to her good speed and defense plus the defense tile. However, Tana finishes her attack, moves backwards because of hit and run, and because she has guidance on, Azura can teleport to hit Nephany. Without the defense tile, my Nephany would be dead. As you can see, the Firesweep weapons support a really cool hit and run playstyle. Using the high mobility of flyers, you can put yourself in a good position, pick off enemies, retreat, and then set up for the next attack. You can also use your flyers to flank enemies or just have them be able to get to places faster because they aren't affected by terrain. On crowded maps with a lot of trees, mountains, or water, having a flying Firesweep user can allow you to make attacks from positions no other units can. If you have a full Flyer Emblem team, then things only get more fun as your entire team can be a death ball that moves around the whole map. So what stats are we looking for when planning to build a Firesweep user? Since they restrict the user from attacking during the enemy phase, there is really no point in trying to build defensively. Sure, you don't want units to have such low HP, defense, or resistance that they're getting one shot, but the whole idea of Firesweep Flyers is to keep them untouchable through the use of movement abilities. This means that we are left with 2 stats, and the logic is pretty simple. You want units that have good amounts of attack because that means more damage, but more importantly, you want units with really high amounts of speed. Remember, a Brave weapon guarantees a double attack, but a Firesweep weapon does not. Without getting a double, Firesweep weapons will not outdamage a Brave weapon. You need units and skills that will be able to get follow-up attacks naturally by having 5 more speed than the enemy. There are other methods, but this is the most consistent way. Knowing this, I have a list of flyers that I think make the best users for a Firesweep build. They are ordered by color and sorted by highest speed at the top to lowest at the bottom. This is not a ranking system, just want to make it easier to compare units. Starting off with our blue units, our latest Lance flyer to the game is also our fastest. Shigure has an amazing 37 base speed and a very serviceable 33 attack. I personally use a plus attack Shigure to get a nice 36 attack, 37 speed base stat line. However, there is definitely a ton of value in a plus speed nature as well. Tana is next with 34 attack and 36 speed. While she comes with her own unique weapon, which is actually quite defensive, Tana can drop it for a Firesweep Lance, and I've seen many Firesweep Tanas in the arena. Last is Cordelia, who has the very pleasing to look at 35 attack and 35 speed stat line. Out of these 3 units, Cordelia is the easiest to get, meaning you should have an easier time getting a plus speed nature. There are many other decently fast flyers, but Cordelia is essentially the gatekeeper of this class. Est and Hinoka have the same attack, but lower speed. Shauna and Katra have about the same speed, but lack attack. In terms of performance, there is no reason not to use Cordelia over the other common lance flyers when using a braver Firesweep build. However, Fire Emblem Heroes isn't a game where you need to only use the most powerful units, use whoever you want. In the red corner, very recently we have gotten a clear new champion for the Firesweep sword. Legendary Ryoma comes with a godly 34 attack and 39 speed, which is one of the best offensive spreads in terms of fast units. After Roma we have the previous champ Valentia, however she comes with her own special brave sword, so either way she will be running some kind of offensive build. Last, kind of lower on the list, is New Year's Camilla, but I still think 33 attack and 35 speed is enough for a mention. The sword flyer pool isn't exactly very large anyway. All 3 of these units are admittedly pretty rare, but if you have them, you have the option to run a Firesweep build. For green, I have stars next to the title simply because there is no Firesweep axe in the game at the time this video is being made. I'm sure it will come eventually, but even if it did, there isn't really any great axe flyers who can make good use of it. The fastest axe flyer is New Year's Azura, who is a dancer, but 30 attack is clearly a bit behind, especially compared to the lance and sword flyers. Minerva is the next fastest, and even then she only has 31 attack and 33 speed. Camilla is right behind with 30 attack and 32 speed. Compared to blue and red, even if we had a Firesweep axe, I wouldn't say there are any green axe flyers who are made for the job. They can use it, but personally I would set the minimum to be at least somewhere around 33 attack and 35 speed. As for colorless, there is the Firesweep bow for the new Archer Hinoka. Most of the things we are talking about has been focused around melee Firesweep users, but she can also take advantage of all the perks of the weapon. As for why I've listed Spring Kagero, again there is no Firesweep type dagger weapon. However, I do think it's a weapon type that should get the Firesweep effect, so if that ever happens, then Kagero's solid 35 attack and 34 speed could be a contender. Regarding all of these units and any other Firesweep users, I would typically recommend a plus speed nature. Shugure could probably get away with plus attack, but plus speed isn't bad anyway. For Ryoma, I actually think plus attack is the better choice. There is such a thing as too much speed to the point where it's wasted stats versus putting it into attack. However, there are many factors to this, including what types of enemies you are fighting. In the highest tiers of arena, you may need that 45 plus speed to double some units, and this can also be the case in PvE content. There is no set answer, but getting a double will be better than an extra 3 attack in most cases. Now that we know what kinds of units make good Firesweep users, we have to customize their kits to get even more attack and speed. All of these builds have aspects that can be mixed and matched, so definitely feel free to pick and choose skills you have access to or want to try out. First up, let's talk about Life and Death. It grants plus 5 attack and speed, but also deducts minus 5 defense and resistance. This is the highest amount of attack and speed you can get together from an A skill. A Firesweep Lance can disregard the defense penalty since it prevents counterattacks. Combine that with our previous talks about skills like Hit and Run, and you can get in, dish out damage, and then get out. If you'd run Life and Death, I would really recommend not letting that unit take any kind of hit from a high attack enemy. As for specials, the general choice you will mostly see is Luna. The reasoning is that Firesweep Lance won't let you proc a 2-turn special since you aren't getting hit before your follow-up attack. Ideally, you want to be doubling every time, and if you can double the second enemy as well, then Luna is going to proc. This is helpful against super tanky units who may be on defense tiles. Not to mention you don't usually see Bonfire or Iceberg because these Firesweep users are sacrificing those stats for more points in attack and speed. Now I would say this is a pretty common setup and Life and Death is attainable without having to sacrifice super rare 5-star units. The next 2 skills are your most expensive options. Swift Sparrow is on a lot of units, but they are all 5-star exclusives and those units are pretty good too. This skill grants 1 less attack and speed than Life and Death, but only when initiating, and you don't lose the minus 5 defense and resistance. 5 points can be the difference between a one-shot and surviving, so being able to keep those stats are at least somewhat valuable. You don't want to get hit, but if you do, it's a major boon to not immediately go down. As for Chill Speed, this new B skill is actually very potent and you don't even need to use it on your Firesweep user. Since it's a global minus 7 speed debuff on the highest speed enemy, you give your Firesweep user 7 extra points of speed to work with to get that double attack. This can be really strong, and since Swift Sparrow doesn't provide that plus 4 speed during the enemy phase, it can keep your Firesweep user from getting doubled if the enemy has a really fast unit. As a last added skill, I think the smoke skills are also good pairings for these weapons. You can apply them safely, and attack smoke can keep your Firesweep user alive if they are still in range of the enemy after their first round of combat. Next we have our budget build setup. Darting Blow is by far one of the easiest A skills to get for inheriting, and plus 6 speed is really nice. Give this unit some kind of attack buff and you will still see good results. Drag Back is also another easy skill to get, and despite the consistency of hit and run, there are cases where Drag Back is very useful. You can get a free hit in, then drag the enemy back toward your team to finish them off. As for C skills, Threatened Speed may be great in situations your Firesweep user survives a hit, but can't normally double that enemy. Threatened Speed can be that clutch debuff you need to get that follow up and get a KO. Now regarding Cordelia specifically, she is the only 3 to 4 star flyer who has a really good stat line for Firesweep weapons. Roderick is also a 3 to 4 star unit and he has the Firesweep Lance, so he can pass that to Cordelia if you want to try out a Firesweep Flyer. Probably the easiest unit to get for these builds, and she comes with Gale Force, which can also be good with Firesweep weapons. It does have a high cooldown to get through however. Now this is a build that is meant for the new Legendary Ryoma, but it still has aspects you can apply to other users. While Raijinto is a good weapon, Flyers being naturally weak to archers and Ryoma not having the greatest defense or resistance anyway, means trying to make use of distant counter might be a little tough for him. However, we've seen that Ryoma has the stats and the flyer mobility to be a great user of a Firesweep sword. Instead of having an enemy phase weapon, this will be a full-on player phase build. Give him Life and Death or Swift Sparrow, and this time we are going to use a 2-turn cooldown special. The reason is because we are going to run Heavy Blade as a Sacred Seal. This synergizes perfectly with Ryoma's unique Bushido skill, which grants plus 10 damage on special procs, and since Heavy Blade can charge a 2-turn special in one hit, Ryoma will proc his special if he doubles. You can repeat this over and over as long as Ryoma keeps getting doubles and keeps proccing Heavy Blade. To make sure Heavy Blade works, I would highly suggest a plus attack nature or giving Ryoma a Hone Flyers buff. In general, every Firesweep Flyer would love a plus 6 attack and speed Hone Flyers buff, but any other buff will help too. Now personally, I think this is a build worth trying out, especially if you don't think Ryoma can make good enough use of his enemy phase skills. It's almost perfect timing that I will be doing a video about flying units, and we get probably the best Firesweep Flyer you could ask for as the new legendary hero. That about wraps up this video, and I hope it's helped you understand why so many people use Firesweep builds on Cordelia and the others. It's a super strong offensive weapon that can clearly compete with Brave type weapons. For our next video, it's a double header where I'll be talking about Sheeta's Wing Sword and Claire's Fire Lance. Two awesome new weapons for twice as much fun. I'll see you guys next time.